with me, Guy Royce.
Hello, Internet people. My name is Guy Royce, and today I'm going to finish up my three-part series on Apollo GraphQL with Redis and RediSearch. We're finding haunted places, and right now it's fast, but we're going to make it even faster by using DataLoader. So it's a cache for our cache. Yo, dog, I heard you like caches. So join me at the Haunted Mansion at the end of the road, and let's get started. All right, so this time it's going to be a little easier, I think, than some of the previous videos here. A little bit shorter, a little bit quicker, because we only have to mess with one file, and that's the hauntedplaces.js file. We need to expand this guy to use DataLoader. What's DataLoader? Well, DataLoader is it's a caching mechanism that it works, just locally. It's in a memory cache for caching your requests within a individual call. So if you come in and you have a really naive query that says, well, give me this place and then give me this place again, it will just get it once. And so it reduces the chattiness. It makes us so we don't have to talk to Redis if we don't need to for that duplication. I'm going to show you what the problem here is really quick. Let me get this thing up and running. So we start our server, and then we're going to kick off Redis Monitor. So Redis CLI Monitor. Monitor will give us all the commands that are going back and forth across Redis. And I'm just going to go ahead and embiggen this so we can see it in all of its glory. And so if I go in here and have a simple query, let's say I get, let's get a city, or yeah, we'll get a city. We'll get the city. No, we'll get a place. We're gonna get the Ada Witch. Good old Ada Witch. Key number 1. And that place is going to have a city, right? And it's also going to have a state, right? And that state is going to have a name and an abbreviation. We want that back. The city has a name, and it has a state, which has a name and an abbreviation. And so what this will do when we run it is it's going to go get the place. It's going to call hgetall to get the place. It's then going to go hgetall to get the city. And then for the city, it's going to call hgetall to get the state. And then for the state, it's going to call hgetall to get the state. So we should see it calling hgetall to get the state of Michigan more than once. Let's confirm that does indeed happen. Make sure it works first. So here we have the place with the city and the state here. So state has been retrieved twice. And if we look at monitor here, we can see the calls to Redis where we say hgetall place :1. That's the Ada Witch story. We get the city for it. We get the state. And then we get the state a second time. And so we've made 4 calls to Redis, but we could do this in 3. So let's do this in 3. So let me bring the code back. To do that, we're going to use a tool called DataLoader. So I'm going to install DataLoader before we do anything. npm install DataLoader -save. And let me widen that. My head might be in your way there. So that's the call I'm using right there. Nothing fancy. And it downloads it and installs it. And hey, our package JSONs are updated and all that stuff. Now we've got DataLoader. Hooray! Get this back over here to the right. So to use DataLoader, well, we need to import it first. So let's import DataLoader from DataLoader. That was easy. And then the Haunted Places data source will have a DataLoader associated with it. And this will be on the constructor. You might remember that the Haunted Places data sources in general, are created by Apollo GraphQL when it feels like it should have those. So if we go to our resolvers, or go all the way back to our app.config, we create Haunted Places data sources by new ones recurringly. So Apollo server will manage that for us so that for one call, it'll come in and do it. So let's go ahead and say this.loader equals new DataLoader. Now we've got a DataLoader. Cool. Let's use our DataLoader. Pull this down here a little bit. So what we want is that when we do fetch here, so find fetch state, for example, calls this.fetch with a key. We want to have the fetch command do something that uses DataLoader instead. So let's do return this.loader.load, and then this will go out and load it from the database. And we're just going to pass it the key. And that's what it's going to do now instead. So that looks like magic, doesn't it? How does this loader know how to load the thing that I care about? Well, we're going to go back up to the top here, and we're going to tell the loader how to do it. And I omitted one of the arguments that the data loader needs, which is it needs a function passed in that knows how to load things. So that function is going to get the IDs of the things we want to load. In this case, it's going to be our keys for the hashes that we want to get back. And that function takes an array of those. And then it's going to return a promise that resolves to an array of those as well. So we'll say keys. And then I'm just going to call a local function, which we haven't written yet, called this.load, pass in keys. So that'll be fairly easy. And then on here, we can say async load keys. And then we need to return a single promise. But we know that when we call hgetAll, this little bit of code I copied from down here, that's going to return, this is an async call right here. So that's going to return a promise. We need to call this in a loop for keys. So we would say keys.map key to a call to this, right? Like that. However, that is going to return an array of promises, which is not what we want. So we want to call promise.all and then pass that into there. I think that'll do it. Yeah, that looks good. So promise.all keys.map, and then we call this redis.hgetAll key to key. So we're mapping those keys to an array of promises that are going to return the results from Redis. And now DataLoader knows how to load keys. And this should be ready to go. I don't think I missed anything here. Let's go ahead and run this and see what it does. See if it starts. Okay, we connected to Redis and did our info call. Let's clear this out a little bit. Let's run our query again. And this time it should only get the state once, or to blow up, one or the other. It didn't blow up. Instead, we got our place, we got our city, and our state. We got our state one time. And so, yeah, this totally works. Cool. In fact, you could, do this with other things, right? So you can get the state this way as well. We can say state, and then state : Michigan, which is where this particular place is at. You can get the name and the abbreviation. And if we run that, we'll see that, again, it only gets the place and the state and the city. And then we could get the city directly as well. City, and it's got the city of Ada and the state of Michigan, because that's how we uniquely identify that. And then we could, well, let's just go ahead and get the whole kit and caboodle here and do that. And again, it will only make 3 round trips to Redis. Even though we've retrieved the city twice, we've retrieved the state 4 times, it still only makes 3 calls. So, cool. DataLoader did a thing. So, that's fine. That's grand. That's dandy. That's great. But fetching keys from a hash, or fetching hash, isn't the only thing that we're doing. We're also doing a search, and so we need to be able to do a similar thing with search. So let's show the problem here. I'm going to go ahead and clear things out here, so we can again have a clear slate to go from. Let's get Moonville, Ohio. And I want to get Moonville because I know that it has exactly two haunted places. So if we get the name of the city, state, there's the name and the abbreviation. If we query that, then there's Moonville, Ohio, right? But it also has the places. And we have 2 places. We have with an ID and a location and a detail. We'll just stick with this location. And the place has a city. And the city has a name and a state and all those things. But more importantly, the city has places. And we can get the ID and the location and the city. You see where I'm going here. I'm making the circle again, right? And then I can get the places. And let's just get the IDs for those, right? Now this query should totally work. It's going to fan out. It might be a little slow running here. Did I say I meant places there? Small typo. There we go. So that gets Moonville, Ohio, which has the deserted railroad tunnel and the Civil War graveyard, and then it just sort of Cartesian products it against itself to get lots of variations in this horrible loop. And if we look at our code here, what we're doing when we do that is we get Moonville, Ohio, we get the state, we do Moonville, Ohio. This is from a previous one, I think. But we're calling that places search multiple times, right? And we don't want to do that. We want to be a little smarter than that. So see, we got it fanning out there a whole bunch. So we need to do that same data loader thing on the search. So let's do that. Let's get rid of some of these duplicated calls. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out here real quick first. So here on find, we need to do something similar. We need to say, instead of calling this.redis.call, blah, 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 we need to say this.loader.load, and then somehow tell it how to load something using this index in this query somehow. Well, so what we're going to do is we're just going to pass in an object instead of a string. And we'll give it a type of search. And we'll pass in the index, and we'll pass in the query. And that'll create more of a request and less of a key that's being passed to loader. And we'll need to do the same thing up here to fetch, where we can pass in an object, give it a type. And this is just going to act as an alternative key that's got some data in it that we want to make use of. So type is hash, pass in the key, real trace. And so that'll call loader.load to fetch those things. And then the rest of this code should be pretty much the same, right? We can say return found keys and values. It's just the loader gets it for us instead. So let's update the loader to be a little bit smarter. So here we're saying return promise.all, keys.map async. That's supposed to be async. And then this little function here. But we don't have a key now, and we don't have keys. It's more like we have requests. So I suppose I should probably rename this variable here. But let's implement this function first, and then we'll rename the variable. So what we can do in here now is we need to say if I guess it's key right now, key.type is a hash, then return this. Right? And if key.type is equal to a search, then we need to do something different. And that something different is a call to this.redis.call. It's called to do the search. So return that, and then if it's none of those things, then it'll just pass through, and that's fine. And we got key.type, so this is going to be key.key. And this is going to be key.index and key.query. And all of a sudden, these really aren't keys anymore. They're more like requests. So I think I'm going to call these requests. Requests, and requests. And then that becomes request singular. Don't want to mess up my singulars and plurals. So now we got a request type and a request key and a request type and a request index and a request query. And so now search will be going through this data loader. So I should be able to rerun this query. And let me create a bunch of space here for us. And now we should see much fewer calls to Redis. Let's take a look here. It didn't work. Why not? Well, the tone of my voice should be a clue that I know why. And the reason is because DataLoader, when it caches things, it needs a key for its internal cache. And right now, and it's using whatever we pass in as the key to load. So this request is an array of those keys. In our case, that's an array of objects. And so if you take an object in JavaScript and compare it to another object in JavaScript using triple equals, it's going to say false unless they are the same instance of an object. That's not true in our case. And so we need something to fix that. That something is that we can tell DataLoader, hey, here's a caching function. I'm going to hand you whatever is handed into me for the key, the ID to go look this thing up. Turn that into a key that I can actually cache on, or an index that I can, or a value that I can actually cache on. So that is called cache key function. And we need to provide a function to do that. I am going to just use json.stringify. So that will take that object and turn it into a string. And then that string will be something that you could do an equals comparison against. So let's see if that solves our problem and we get many fewer calls. So, all right, we got a whole bunch of calls here. Oops. Let's make some space so we can see where the magic happens. Just run our query again. And now we see that we have 2 hgetals and 1 call to search. Now, we've actually searched, once, and then for each of the 2 results we get back, we search twice more. And for those 2, we search twice more, so we get 4. So we did 7 searches, but only 1 of them hit Redis. So this is way more performant. Interestingly enough, you can see we're doing hgetals for the places that are inside of our search. This is not actually a call to Redis. So we call hgetal here, and you see an IP address here and a port and everything. And that's to get our city, and we do that to get our state, and we do that for our search. But then search internally on the Redis side calls hgetal, and so you see that the IP address is a big fat question mark because it didn't actually come from the network. So in case you're curious what those 2 things are there. So cool, that's working much better, much more performant. Redis is fast, but now we've made it even faster. So there's one last thing to do, and this isn't super obvious, and it's a little hard to demonstrate, but I feel like it's a good step that you need to do to take this the rest of the way. And that's this, if someone were to come in later and say, well, give me place 4104, we've already retrieved that as a result of our search. But if someone came in and asked for it outside of that, we would go out and get it again, even though we've actually received the data. And there's a way that you can prime the data using, the prime function on loader to say, I already got this as part of another query, so go ahead and add this as well. So we're going to add the code to do that. And to do that, we need the keys and values both from calling the search loader.load search. So let's go ahead and let the values be here. Before we were just returning the values, but we're going to need the keys as well. So let's assign the values to a variable. And then we'll just copy pasta here. And say let keys equal things that filter on the evens as opposed to on the odds of the modulus. So the keys are on the evens, the values are on the odds. We're in essence taking this array and sort of unzipping it, right? So we got our keys, we got our values, and now all we need to do is a loop over either our keys or our values. I'm going to use the keys, and just call prime. So for each key, I want to get the key and then the numeric index of that key value in that array. And then we're going to call this.loader.prime. And then prime is going to take just a key and a value. And that key is going to be that same curly brace thing that we've been using everywhere. Since we're putting the value of a hash in here, so like hgetall is what's being called right here, we need to make it look like this is the hash. So we'll say type equals hash. And then the key is going to be equal to the key. And then the value here that we're passing in is going to come from the values array, and we're just going to get that based on the index. And so now this will, whenever we do a search, this will go ahead and prime that up, and we won't have to look for those again. So let's try that. Make sure we didn't break anything. We're not going to necessarily be able to see this working, but this can improve things in some edge case scenarios. So I went ahead and run it. And then we see that there's our called info, there's the get all for Moonville, the get all for state, and then there's our searches just like before. So still works. We got our data back. Everything's hunky-dory. So, well, that's pretty much all I've got. Using a DataLoader, you can make naive queries efficient by not hitting Redis repetitively when you don't need to. And so this is a great little technique to do that. That's all I've got. Thanks for watching. Let me switch to a cam view here. So thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions, of course, leave them in the comments below. Join our Discord server. You can ask me questions about this there. You know, lots of availability. And of course, as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, blah 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 blah. You know what to do, right? Oh, and something about a bell that needs rung. I'm not sure what that means, but anyhow, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
With me, Guy Royce.
Hide in the corner. Ah!